Alive.
Okay. Checking on YouTube. Did you want to try to play Sonic music again?
Well, I can. So I've got. So
Well, we did want to try this dev stream, right? Because like the past dev stream, you were suggesting the potential solution.
yeah. So I don't have a playlist prepared that isn't just my work playlist, which contains Nintendo music. Do we
Oh,
want to risk it? I can also I can record the VOD on my end as well. But I guess if it gets flagged while we're live streaming, then it'll get flagged when we re-upload it.
yeah, that'll be an issue.
I
Okay,
I
we'll prepare
know.
this for next stream.
I'll
Yeah.
remind
Uh,
me next time to make a playlist that is just this playlist but without any Nintendo music.
you have a Zachtronics playlist, right? Now that Zachtronics is no more,
Oh
rest in
man.
peace to a real one. Uh, do you think we can get away with like the Shenzhen IO playlist
So I'm pretty sure I only have the Infinifactory soundtrack.
in Factory one? I mean,
Yeah,
that's a good one for programming
it
music.
is good.
Yeah,
Infinifactory OST. All right, yeah. I'm just gonna hit
yeah,
shuffle and
yeah. We're
play.
doing
Let's
it.
go.
Let's go.
Yeah. All right. So it started with the 12-second song. So that's good. Um. Okay. Um.
Well,
Oh no,
I guess
it's
there's no
just
way for me
looping
to.
the one song. That's my bad.
Okay. All right. So let's wait for at least Asila to filter in.
Yeah.
Hopefully, other folks join us as well. Though time schedules can be kind of difficult. Um, and yeah, we are going to talk about bitmaps. We're going to talk about bitmaps. We're going to talk about sprites. And this is a big topic, so hopefully folks are looking forward to it.
I'll want to talk a
How,
little
how,
bit over the music so that we don't have to worry too much. Although, I don't know.
so right now, I can't hear the music because
Here, let
because
me.
you're sharing you're sharing this screen on your end. Uh, but I think that's probably fine. Let me just check the.
Yeah, check to make sure that you don't just have the desktop audio muted.
Sure. No, oh no, maybe it's because. No, unfortunately, I can't hear the music, but it's coming through on stream, which I think is good
Okay.
enough for our purposes.
Basila says, I'll probably rewatch the stream later on. I'm too tired to comprehend a lot of info. Honestly, that's real.
Fair, but yeah, that's totally fair. Okay, so in that case, I think we may as well begin.
Yeah.
Right. If other folks drop in, I'll say hello.
So, to start,
But yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I was throwing to you.
So to start with, I made a very simple plugin. It's a plugin that creates a new window called a bitmap container, which sets its background type to 2 so that the actual frame of the window is not visible. It creates a new bitmap, it loads the dragon image, which you can now see in the corner. This is an image that I made with my artistic skill, and you can tell because it looks good. And then once the bitmap is loaded, we draw the bitmap onto the window contents. And that's exactly what's going on. You can see if I eliminate this line of code and eliminate this line of code, then you can see more clearly that it's being drawn on a window. But I wanted it to be flush, so I wrote that code. So this is a bitmap. This dragon that you see, this extremely well-drawn dragon, This is what's called a bitmap. A bitmap is a special object within JavaScript that contains it contains image data, essentially. So it contains. Let me actually open up the.
Just to clarify, bitmaps do exist outside of JavaScript as well. They're pretty popular, right?
Yeah.
Image format. Anything that you've run into that is .bmp, that's a bitmap.
Yeah. So the term I was looking for is base texture. The base texture, or the texture, is the variable which contains the actual image, and then there are a bunch of other properties like width and height that you can anticipate a bitmap would have that helps it provide instructions on how to draw this information. Now, window.contents is also a bitmap. Whenever we have a window, and I'll make the window visible again. Whenever we have a window, what you draw onto the window, including text, that is inside a variable called contents, and contents is also a bitmap. So basically anything that you can see in this game is stored inside a bitmap, whether that's the text on the command window, or the castle in the background, or even the text stream project, which is hidden behind one of the windows. So once you understand windows, or once you understand bitmaps, you are, I would say 45% of the way to understanding how to manipulate the way your game looks so that you can make it look exactly however you want, and fairly efficiently. So let's go over the most important function that bitmaps have, and bitmaps are going to be found in the RPG core plugin. I'm looking at window.prototype. I want to look at bitmap.prototype. Where is bitmap? Yeah, here it is. It's not create canvas. We don't need that. What we do need is BLT. Now, BLT, the description that the documentation provides is not useful. Performs a block transfer. What is a block transfer? So when you say bitmap.blt, and if I go to the, here, let me push it over here. When we go to the plugin that I wrote, we can see I'm saying, oh, go ahead.
One suggestion. So because BLTs are very long function calls, may I recommend we go with a vertical format?
Oh, snap!
When we're starting a Windows.
I forgot we could do that.
Yeah.
I don't actually know how to.
It may
do
take some
this.
arrangement. So you can drag it and it's just not going to let you do it.
Oh, it just won't let me fully. That's funny.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. Here, I thought I was making a very clever suggestion.
Maybe I can do. Oh, come on! I can drag this guy to the bottom.
No, so it's because they're already horizontally formatted, and for whatever reason, Visual Studio doesn't let you do grid formats inherently.
Okay, let's do it like this.
Yeah.
Now
and
I should be able to.
One of them.
Yeah, there we go.
Perfect. Yeah.
Oh, we love it. Okay.
By the way, one fun thing. So if you scroll up to the comments above the BLT function.
Yes.
So this is really helpful if any of you are working with Visual Studio or another IDE. You can label your parameters this way, and it'll be very helpful when you call them again.
Yes.
Within the same project. So highly recommend you do this if you whenever you're sort of done writing code and then you just kind of want to comment it and document it. This is a really good method of doing it.
Yeah.
Okay, back to you.
Okay, so the basic gist of what BLT does is that it transfers a rectangle from a different bitmap onto this bitmap. So if we remember that, I'll say var contents equals win.contents. If we remember that contents is a bitmap, when we say contents.blt, we are calling bitmap's BLT function. And then we pass a source, which is another bitmap. And then we have a set of 4 coordinates, which is basically what are the x and y width and height of the bitmap that we just passed. What do we want to copy from that bitmap onto the bitmap that's calling the function? And then these 4 parameters are what are the coordinates that we want to draw onto. So as an example here, I have, we've got the dragon bitmap, which I'll rename to dragon, I'll spell it correctly, dragon bitmap, to sort of prevent confusion. So we've got the dragon bitmap, and then we want to take the Windows contents and perform a block transfer where we get the dragon bitmap and then the top corner followed by the bottom corner of the dragon bitmap, which basically just means copy the entire dragon bitmap. And we want to draw that at coordinate 0, 0. So you can see here, let me, I need to strategically uncomment this. So if I get rid of the window looking component of this, you can see that the corner of the window is 0, 0. The dragon is being drawn in position 0, 0. And if I move the window over, let's say 50 pixels, and I set the width to the width of the window, or the width of the graphics minus 50, then we can see the position of the window is 0, 0. The position of the dragon is still 0, 0. Sorry, the 0, 0 of the window is 50, 0. I'll go ahead and return that back to the top corner. If I were to change this value to 50, then when I go and refresh, we can see that the dragon is now 50 off. So if the 0, 0 of the window is up here in the top left corner, the dragon is 50 pixels to the right. And then, you can do the same with the y coordinate. And boom, now he's down here. So the Windows contents, which is a bitmap, is the entire size of the window. Technically slightly smaller, but that's completely fine. So if I were to draw this at, let's say, graphics.boxHeight over 2, if I were to say, if that was the position that I wanted to draw at, then we would expect to see the bottom part of the dragon get cut off, because that's where the bitmap we're drawing onto ends. And I'll make a quick diagram. So here's bitmap 1, and now here's bitmap 2. So when we perform a block transfer, we're grabbing a rectangle, which is this rectangle, and then we draw it somewhere here. And if we try and draw it too low, then we end up cutting it off. Now similarly, we could say, hey, let's only take a portion of the bitmap and draw it here. We could try to cut it off without making it at the edge. So if I were to set, this to 50, this to 50, instead of taking dragon bitmap.width, I can just say, let's say 50. So the width is 50 here. And now we would expect we've cut off the head of the dragon. Defeated is the monster. We also have its foot. And I can also do the same here where I can say, okay, instead of the entire height of the bitmap, let's do 50. And now I've lost the foot. Now we have nothing but the head.
So, as a suggestion, could we make the dragon in 3 parts, right? And have each of those bitmaps be separate?
Absolutely. So, here, I'll duplicate these, and I'll say, okay, so we want to start drawing from the top left until, let's say, the width over 3, right? And we'll take the whole height, and it'll just be vertically drawn. So now, when we draw the next third, we don't want to draw from the top left again. We want to draw dragon bitmap.width over 3. Now the width the actual width should still be over 3. And if I were, for the third one, let's say over 3 times 2, and this should still be over 3. And if I were to refresh this, this isn't going to look exactly the way we want, and you'll see why very momentarily. So I am drawing 1/3 of the dragon.
Oh dear.
I am drawing all 3/3 of the dragon, however, I'm drawing them all in the same location. So I might want to say 50 plus dragon bitmap dot width over 3, and then plus dragon bitmap dot width over 3 times 2. Now we can see it that
It's back.
It's back. And if I were to say plus 10 and then plus 20, we can see more cleanly the way we've bisected this dragon.
I think trisected.
You're right. We've
right,
trisected the dragon.
Yeah. So the reason that I made Isaiah go through this extremely laborious exercise is, one, to illustrate that, but two, this is a pretty common technique in 2D games where you compose a sprite out of multiple sprites, right? So you have maybe the base, but the head is a different sprite. The arms are different, right? And that allows you to animate them separately, right? If you wanted to do something fancy.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say that we wanted, we wanted the dragon head to do a particular motion, but the wings are doing a separate motion, right? We would cut it up using this kind of method. Older games which had sprite sheets, right, would do like a pretty similar thing of like, we actually saw this not so much in the Super Nintendo games, but in PS1 games that had sprite sheets. They would like, if you ever look at like the Mega Man X sprite sheets, they only have like portions of them that they build in engine, right, using the sort of separate bitmaps. So could be a thing that you end up doing. It allows you to have more sort of complex. It allows you to reuse assets in a way that could be really helpful for your own projects.
Don't mind me.
I can vamp about sprite sheets all day. Let me tell you about Symphony of the Night has amazing sprite sheets. Though they do some wacky stuff occasionally with those. Like there used to be this technique of like you can build like a 3D model of a character, but because they would animate funnily, they would actually just like take shots of it moving in like 3 separate directions to do like an 8-directional sprite for it.
My boy is flying. / I accidentally.
So what have you done?
So what I've done is I've taken the dragon bitmap, and instead of dividing it into 3 pieces, I've divided it into as many pieces as there are pixels wide divided by 2, and then I've offset the drawing by 1 pixel every other like bisection. So if I were to say over 4 instead of over 2, then we could see he's angled slightly differently.
So my guess is, Isaiah, this is where your the shatter effect kind of came from, right?
Yes.
So you being able to sort of this the not informal term for this is gibbing, right? Which is you take a 2D sprite, you cut it up into like a bunch of small pieces, and then you can show them like flying apart, right, in like different ways. And this is programmatic, right? So every time Isaiah boots it, it'll be like slightly different, is my guess.
So I'm not using any random components, so this should be the same every time. But if I were to add a random element, then there might be something wonky going on. If I were to say, for example, math.sin I divided by 4 times 3, he's a wavy boy.
That's fantastic. And then the sign will do the same each time, right?
Yeah.
So that's not a randomizer. Yeah.
So I'm gonna comment this out, and I'm gonna bring back this guy temporarily, because if we look at this line of code, you might notice something very interesting. So we're passing the source. We've got the source x, which is the x coordinate of the source y, the y coordinate of the source. We have, I'm just going to do the entire width instead of just 1/3. The width of the source image, the height of the source image, and then we have the x coordinate in the destination, the y coordinate of the destination. We're missing these two in this particular call. Now, if we don't pass DW and DH, then they just get set to SW and SH. This says the width to draw the image in the destination, the height to draw the image in the destination. So if I pass nothing, it's the same as if I pass dragonbitmap.width, dragonbitmap.height. But if I were to say dragonbitmap.width times 2, height times 2, what do we think would happen? Based on the fact that we know this is the width to draw the image in the destination and the height to draw it.
Let's give chat a moment to respond.
Yeah. This music is
Assuming
really
chat is
energizing.
live. Yeah. That's why I thought it was like a good idea to bring it.
I just want to play Waluigi Pinball on loop.
I don't think we can get away with that.
So you're all absolutely correct unless you said that it wouldn't do this. It draws the image at double the size. So we can use this to, for example, say, let's draw it at half size height-wise. Isilla forgot the question. That's very funny.
Yeah, which is totally fair. Yeah, so the question was, what would be the outcome of adding those last two parameters, based on the fact that one of them manipulates the destination width and one of them manipulates the destination height. Yeah, the times 2. Okay. And then now Isaiah is sort of manipulating it further, such that the width is double the original width and the height is half the original, which is leading to a very squashed boy.
Yeah. Look at how I massacred my boy. So this is essentially a poor man's scale. And I say a poor man's scale because if I up it to, I want to say 8, it won't overflow. It overflowed, but that's okay. You can see that the scale's blurry. And like that's unfortunate. So if you want something pixel perfect, I don't recommend using the scale modifier on BLT in order to achieve that. If you need something to not be pixel perfect, then this is completely fine. This dragon is, well, you can really admire the shape of the eye this way, can't you? I'm still learning how to draw. Don't judge the art.
Okay. So that's BLT. It's probably the most important function when it comes to bitmap stuff.
Yes.
But there is potentially one more fairly important thing we should cover, which is, Isaiah, how does image manager work?
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot that we should definitely cover image manager. That's really funny. So image manager.load system is what we're currently calling within bitmap container. We can see that I'm calling image manager.load system and I'm passing one parameter, which is dragon. And dragon is the name of the image that we're loading. If I go to RPG managers, we can see image manager load system is calling load bitmap. And it's looking for a file name and a hue. And from this, we can probably deduce that if I don't supply a hue, then it has a default hue that's completely fine. But if we see file name, dragon is the name of the file. So if I say load bitmap, then it is passing image system, and then the file name, and then the hue, and then false. Let's see what load bitmap is doing. So it looks like we need a folder, and in load system, it passes image system, which is the system folder for images. And then the file name, and then hue, and then smooth. So bitmap.smooth. What do we think? What do we think bitmap.smooth does? This is a question for you, Neil.
Oh, for me? Okay. My guess is that what does bitmap.smooth do? I would guess it aliases it, or specifically, sorry, it anti-aliases it, because aliasing is just the
Yeah.
the regular one. It essentially makes it blurry, right?
So this is a variable that I find sometimes does something and sometimes does nothing, which is annoying. But it looks like it's just bitmap.smooth. So if I were to say dragon bitmap, and I were to say dragon bitmap.smooth equals true, because it looks like the default value is false. And when I say it looks like the default value is false, actually, hold on. Load system. Yeah, it passes false. So not much of a default value, just explicitly passed. So if I were to set it to true, then we might run this code and we might see, let me actually get back to, go back to ×8 to minimize the differences. I think it's smoother.
It does appear more jaggy, is my reading.
Let's find out. Let me paste it to MS Paint to verify. So this is with smooth as false. This is with smooth as true. It's exactly the same.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
All right. Well, I know what smooth is supposed to do. It's supposed to determine how smoothly it scales.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but there might be other steps in the process that we're neglecting. So the reason that I brought up Image Manager is that the main thing to note is, Isaiah, if you could open the file directory of the project.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you're just doing image-manager.load system, it already has the directory of image system, right? And you can see Dragon is in there.
Yeah.
This is the exact same thing that the icon sheet is doing. This is the exact same thing that the window skin is doing, right? It's in damage numbers, as you can see here, right? So most of those like visual components that you do see repeated, right, are bitmaps, right, at the end of the day. And then if you're doing load bitmap, you get more flexibility, so you can grab an image from other folders, right, or from another directory, such as maybe an external directory if you're trying to do something different, like let's say like you're trying to do like mini maps, for instance, right? Maybe you don't throw everything into image system to achieve that.
Yeah, like in Card Game Combat, we have a CGC folder inside image. So we would call image manager.load bitmap, and then we'd pass image CGC and then bases if we were looking for a card base. And that's a custom folder that we have, but as long as this directory exists, it can find the bitmap.
Okay, so with Image Manager and BLT covered, that is using BLT to take an existing image, right, and draw it to the screen and be able to control sort of how it shows. But not everything that we use bitmaps for needs a source image. In fact, there are some built-in shapes that we can use pretty effectively. So Isaiah, do you want to show them how to make a health bar or just a bar?
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
That goes up and down based on a value.
So let's take a look at first of all, bitmap.getPixel just returns the color of the pixel. That's very useful. Let's take a look at the clear rect and the clear function first and foremost. Because if I have, let's say I've got a big dragon, and maybe it's a little bit too big. So let's say we need to clear some space. So we'll say contents dot clear rect, and we'll say 100, 100 for the top left corner, and then the width and height is about 75, 75, right? Now, not knowing anything about what this is going to do, because I certainly haven't done my research beforehand. I've never worked in RPG Maker in my life. I'm looking at the function clearRect, and we have a set of coordinates which make a rectangle. My guess is that it's going to take this rectangle and it's going to erase what exists inside that rectangle. And if we hit refresh, then we can see we've made a dent in my son's head. Oh my god. But that's exactly what clearRect does.
Isaiah, why have you killed your son?
I didn't know it would be his forehead. Here, let's move it to his horn. That's a lot less traumatizing.
For you, maybe. For him. It was not a Tuesday.
Maybe I shouldn't have humanized my dragon so much.
Why are you cutting holes in the dragon? Anyway, but I think this is a pretty good demonstration of what clearRect does.
Yeah. And let's say maybe this rectangle isn't big enough, and maybe I want to make it huge, right? But maybe I want to make it so big that it engulfs the entire bitmap. Now I could say 0, 0.
Oh, we have a good question.
Oh yeah.
So
okay.
Isilla asked, what does rect mean?
Rect
doesn't mean the gamer thing.
Yeah, not wrecked, but wrecked. So if we go into RPG Core, I believe that's where it's defined. So technically, it's rectangle is the name of the thing. Neil and I often refer to it as rect because you will often see things like you'll often see code that says var rect equals new rectangle, right? And that'll take some coordinates, like for example 200, 100, 75, 75, right? RPG Maker loves the rectangle object. MZ in particular loves the rectangle object because whenever you see XY width height in MV, like for example when creating a new window, the MZ version of that code will prefer a rect variable. And so the rectangle object contains an X parameter, it contains a Y parameter, and it contains a width and a height parameter. And that's just what a rectangle is.
Yeah, so Scylla has a pretty good follow-up. So it works with other shapes. And the answer to that is yes, there are other shapes. However, this is the difference between what is drawn and what is sort of data, right? So a rect is pretty good for windows, for instance, right? Because you're able to sort of store the coordinates of the window and also the size, and also set them sort of relative to each other. So I do believe that for bitmaps, circles and things, right, are like primitives, right? Circles, triangles, lines, right? You are able to get them, but they are not really used as data objects, at least not in the same way. Yeah.
I don't believe there is a object called circle. You will often see
but
circle.
There's a draw circle function.
Yeah, there is a draw circle function, and it contains X, Y, radius, and color. So, for example, if I were to say contents dot draw circle, and I'll say 100, 100, and then the radius is 100. And for the color, let's just say red. And thankfully, RPG Maker knows how to interpret red into an actual hex value. If I refresh that, then we can see that we've drawn a circle. Now, the center of the circle is coordinate 100, 100, which is why with a radius of 100, it's just barely at the edge. If I were to say, if I were to set this at 0, then we would only see the bottom right corner of the circle. So that's a core difference between whenever you're drawing a circle versus when you're drawing a rectangle. With a circle, the XY coordinates are the center of the circle, Whereas with a rectangle, you will usually see X, Y for the top left corner, and then width and height for how big for the circle to be.
But we are skipping ahead with circles. So
we've taught how to draw circles immediately, so that's great.
Let's go back to rectangles because there's still a fair bit to them.
So if
we want to build a HUD component using just rectangles before we move on to circles.
So if I want to clear the entire bitmap, I might want to say, let's get the top left corner, and then let's set the width to contents.width and contents.height. And that would work. If I hit Control S and I refresh, we can see that the whole thing has been cleared. I don't want to type that much, right? So clear. And it does the same thing. And we can see if I say clear rect, and then we go to clear clears the entire bitmap, and it's just straight up calls clear rect with 0 width height. It's literally just a function that does the extra typing for you.
So one thing that if you're reading through RPG Maker code, especially for Windows, you will notice this .contents.clear being called constantly. Right?
Yeah.
And this is because what that allows us to do, right, is that you may have noticed that, like, let's say that you create a window and you draw text, right? And let's say the text updates each frame. RPG Maker doesn't automatically clear it. Rather, it just draws another text right on top of the text. And eventually, that'll become pretty unreadable. So you want to clear, right, sort of at the... it's either at the start or the end of each frame, right? I think you clear at the start of each frame, and then you draw everything in order on top of it, and then you clear again, right, at the start of next frame.
Yeah, that's exactly right. If the last thing you do is clear, then nothing will display.
Okay, fair enough.
Which is why you can see I've got the draw, and then I've got the draw, and then I've got the clear, and the result is nothing here. So we went over draw circle. There's also fill rect, which, just like clear rect, we can say not clear 0 rect, we can say draw rect, and we'll set this to blue, because I think that'll be fun. Just kidding. It's not draw rect. It's fill rect.
It's fill rect.
See, that's what's... Don't get confused like your old pal Isaiah. Draw circle for drawing a circle. Fill rect for drawing a rect. That's annoying. I have accidentally done the entire contents. Let me go back to cutting a hole in my boy's head.
Fill the rect.
I did fill the rect. That's true. There we go. So I'll say fill rect, and we'll go back to blue, because I don't want to fill the entire bitmap. However, if I did want to fill the entire bitmap, there's a function for that. Since clear rect has clear, it makes sense that fill rect might have a version called fill all. It's not just fill, unfortunately. The naming is not consistent. Draw, fill, clear, etc. And it fills the whole thing with blue. So now we could do something like fill all blue, and then contents dot clear rect 200, 100, 75, 75. I don't know why those are the parameters I'm sticking to, and now boom, we've filled the...
So, an important note about draw order. So, you're calling all these drawing functions, and that's pretty cool. But note that they draw on top of each other, right?
Yeah.
So, the functions near the top will be drawn first. The functions near the bottom will be drawn later. And depending on the order, things can change. For example, Isaiah, if you move fill all to before the BLT, what happens?
Oh, that is a great point. If we put fill all at the very top, then we would expect the entire thing to be filled with blue, and then on top of that, the dragon bitmap would be drawn, and then on top of that, the circle would be drawn, and then on top of that, the rectangle would be cut out. So if I refresh, that should be exactly what we see. We've got the blue, and then the dragon, and then the circle, and then the rect. But if I were to, for example, I'll move this to 100 real quick so that we can see. Yeah, I'll say 150 for that good stuff. If I were to move this to behind draw circle, then what we should see is a hole in the man's head that is being covered up by the red circle. So the order in which you write this code is exactly the order in which it will happen.
Yeah, and you can use it to do all kinds of kind of fun tricks, right? Of like occluding or masking, right? Like a particular thing, right? In order to show something behind it, right? We'll get to animations later, right? But that's another thing to be careful of. If you wanted to add like sort of like fake shadows, right, or like some kind of glow effect, then the order is gonna take precedence, right, in how you call these functions.
So the last function I really want to go over for the bitmap is draw text. Now we've gone over draw text in the past with RPG windows. If I say draw text, it turns out that WindowBase's draw text function is actually a pass-through function to the bitmap. So if you understand Windows draw text, there is exactly one other thing you need to worry about for the bitmap, and then you perfectly understand how bitmap draws text, and that's line height. Line height is the, quote, the height of the text line, and that basically means, like, how far away each new line is vertically from the previous line. So if I were to say, let's say, contents.draw text. Now, just like with a window, we want to say text first, and then we say coordinates are, 200, 200. Max width is going to be 400, which is way more than we need. And then line height.
We may want to increase the x coordinate of this. Otherwise, it does risk overlapping with the clear rect, which would go against what we want to show.
So, because the clear rect happens before the draw text, we don't need to worry too much about that.
Oh, is that because we'll draw on top of the circle as opposed to
yes
with the clear rect? Yeah.
And then the align will set to left, and should see text first. Boom. So now we've drawn text exactly like with RPG windows. The only difference is that we needed an extra parameter, and that parameter only really matters if we're doing multiple lines. Now we can see how that looks with a new line, line number 2. Okay, RPG Maker does not like /n, I forgot.
But because it doesn't process it unless it's draw text EX.
Oh, that's right, man.
It's so annoying.
I don't even remember how to get new lines in draw text. I typically divide draw text like calls into multiple calls, one for each line, if I'm doing things by hand this way. Just because I can't exactly use burr, because that is specifically parsed. Yeah, it doesn't like that at all. That's another escape. I think I can literally hit enter. No, it actually Visual Studio hates that.
No. That's what are you doing? Okay, so silliness aside, this should demonstrate a lot of what bitmaps can kind of do. So let's put it all together. Do we want to build a thing using this, or do we want to move on to sprites?
So let's build the facsimile of something real quick, because we could go into we could make like an HP bar. Actually, you know what we should do is, instead of making an HP bar, because I always say that reading is better than doing, let's take a look at how HP bars are made, and we'll see that they make use of bitmaps, but they also make very interesting use of window functionality. So if I were to say draw HP, draw bar,
Draw basic.
basic, that's right.
Right. Look for draw basic gauges, right? And
Draw
then
actor
it'll have-
HP, that's the function.
Yeah.
So we can see that we've got this draw gauge, and then change text color, and then draw text. And we've already established that draw text for window base is just calling the bitmaps version of draw text. So let's take a look at how draw gauge is drawn. And we can see we've got fill width, which is the width, and then we've got the y coordinate, and then we call this .contents.fillRect. Hey, we've gone over fillRect before. That just fills a rectangle with a color. And then we call this .contents.gradient_fillRect, which, if we scroll down here, it takes x, y, width, height, and then it has the first color, and then it has the second color. So we can see, if we look at this, that we go from color 1 to color 2 over the course of the rectangle. It's really not that much more complicated than drawing a single color. We just supply an extra color in the parameter. And so if I wanted to replicate that, I might say, okay, let's get rid of all of this because we don't need any of it, and we'll say contents.drawRect, I don't know, 50, 50, and then I like a long health bar, so let's say 30, 50, right? And we'll want this to be black. And then we can say contents.clearRect, which is 52, 52, and then the width we'll want 300 minus 4 and 50 minus 4. Not 5 minus 4, 50 minus 4. Now I can do all of that math in my head very easily. It's fillRect, not drawRect every time. And we can see that we've now made a transparent rectangle. Now inside of that, we can say, actually no, I want to keep that cleared. So we can say, so this is the bar outline, right? Now we want the bar fill, and let's say var ratio equals 1 because it's 100% drawn, and we'll say contents.gradient_fillRect. And then we'll say, so we want to start with 52. We want to start with 52 as the height. And then the width looks like that's also 300 minus 4. Let's turn this into a variable. Var width equals 300 minus 4. Var height equals 50 minus 4. And, you know, again, you can do the math here. It's not hard, but I'm moving too fast. And we'll want to say red for the first one and blue for the second one, because those are apparently the only colors I know how to type. And then we'll see, hey, look, this gradient bar is looking pretty good. We got some purple in the center. But what if we said width times ratio? Well, currently it's times 1. That's fine. But if I were to set this to 0.75, right? Then we would expect to see that the bar sort of stops getting filled partway through. And now we have a partially filled bar. So these... You know, this is essentially how you would make a bar, and all you need to do is get the ratio is equal to, let's say, an actor's HP divided by their max HP, and that's the ratio that you need to fill, and boom, you've got a health bar.
So, what if we were to show it filling? So it starts at 0, right? And maybe every couple of frames, right, fills up a bit until it's full. And then when it's full, it goes back down again.
Yeah, okay. We can definitely do that. So let's say...
let's do it in a different window.
In a different window?
Yeah. That way, like when we sort of export out this plugin, right, like folks aren't too confused of like, hey, you
That's
started
true.
drawing a dragon. but
I am
suddenly-
deleting a lot of
suddenly you're
code.
drawing- Yeah.
Okay. Let's make a new, I'll say, function window.
So as Isaiah is making the new window, folks in chat, please chime in. Are you following so far with what we've been talking about with how to use fill rect and clear rect, right, in order to make a gauge, basically? Yeah, so Scylla says, interesting, does it update every frame? It doesn't update unless you tell it to, by giving it an update function. So most windows are derived of window base, which does have an update function. However, not everything has like a function to draw items, right? So if you initialize it at a certain thing and you don't have an update function, it's just going to stay there until like something overwrites it. So we will need to include an update function, right, in order to have the bar tick up the way that we want it to. You can also have it be frame independent by doing things with the system time, which is what we do with like lerp functions. Any of you who have encounter window, I'm just using that as an example because like that's the most recent example of us using lerp in a bunch of ways. But yeah, most of the HUD components for encounter window use lerp in one way or another.
So I've created a new window and I've made it do stuff.
Just before we go, so lerp means linear. Wait, it's linear interpolation, right? That's
I believe
that's
so.
what the
Yeah.
stands for. Yeah. So all lerp is in the context of games. In the context of math, right? There's a bunch of interesting things you can do, kind of with it. But in the context of games, lerp. So when you move a thing right at the same rate, that's fine, but it can look a little bit boring. So what lerp does is that based on how much it needs to move, it moves quickly initially and then slows down, which is perfect for sliding in HUD elements, right? Sliding in, right? Getting them to lock into place, that kind of thing. There's a lot of different uses for lerp, right? And there's also a lot of different types of lerp functions like slurp, right? And things like that. We won't be getting into those as much, but just know that those are options that are available to you. Okay, back to you.
Slurp is a funny word. That is all. Okay, so now what we should see is contents is not defined. Oh, this dot contents.
Boo.
Programming is fun. Yeah, so now we see the dragon is being drawn like it used to be, and now the bar is on the bottom here. But if I were to say, what if instead of this being an initialize function, we had window bar test dot prototype dot draw bar equals function, and we've got the outline and we've got the ratio and all of that, and let's set this dot fill ratio equals 0, and instead of using the ratio we want to use this dot fill ratio. Now we want to say window bar test dot prototype dot refresh. Generally a good idea to have, let's say, this dot contents dot clear and then this dot draw bar. So whenever we call refresh, it'll erase the old thing that we drew and then draw it again, theoretically this time with fill ratio being a little bit different, so we should see something different. Now that on its own is not going to be enough. If we want to look at RPG windows,
because we need to add it to the scene if we want to use refresh, right?
Yeah, refresh is not called every frame, but you know what is called every frame is update. Let's take a look at where window base calls should be at the very top. Here we go. So it updates tone, it updates open, it updates close, it updates. Cool. So it updates a lot of stuff. So we don't want to get rid of that functionality. What we do want to say is, okay, var window. No, actually, we don't need to do that. We can say window bar test.prototype.update equals function. Call the original version for window base.prototype.update. Call this, and then we want to say this dot fill ratio. Did you want to include lerp? Because I was just going to do a very simple plus
No.
equals 0.05.
Just let's just do everything frame based for now.
Let's say
most likely next tutorial is going to be a little bit. It depends on what people want, but it may deal with more advanced functions, right? Because now that we're staring at the abyss that is game graphics, right? You can keep going forever, right? Right. And so what Isaiah is writing there in the update is the game logic.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Jordan says, this is interesting. With this, you can make RPG Maker windows look like anything, right? Yes,
yes.
That is exactly the plan. So in the previous dev streams, we've gone over different types of windows and sort of customizing them. Here, we're taking a more direct kind of approach.
It's a little fast.
Looks so goofy, but it's great.
There we go. That's much better.
Yeah. Right, and as you can see, it's a per frame animation.
Yes.
Now, there's a thing that this bar is doing that I'm not a fan of.
I know exactly where you're gonna go, and I have a solution in mind. Hit it.
Okay. So as you can see, the bar is drawing based on the ratio. However, the gradient is also changing, right, based on the width. In order to again, I'm not going to say all health bars do this, but good health bar design uses the gradient, right, as a way of showing change, right? So we actually want the gradient to be constant while the bar shows a portion of it, right? As it fills up and goes down. So Isaiah, do you have a solution for that?
Absolutely. So this function, this.contents gradient fill rect, width, fill ratio, height, red, blue. We're going to take this function and we're going to put it in the initialize function. Now we're not going to call this .contents. What we are going to do is we're going to say var gradient bitmap equals new bitmap, and it'll equal to what was width and height? It was 300 minus 4, 50 minus 4. Kind of wishing I had done that mental math earlier so that we wouldn't continue this hilarity.
Wait. What was the things to math?
300 minus 4 is literally 296.
It's 296, right, and 46. Right? Come on, man.
I was like, I want to move on too quickly. I don't have time to slow down and do the math.
You do minus 4.
All right, so we finally did it. My soul could be laid to rest. So what new bitmap does, and I think we can see if we look in RPG core, bitmap.prototype.initialize. Yeah, you can see it takes a width and a height component, and there's a lot of stuff in initialize we don't need to worry about. But essentially, this gives us an empty bitmap. This is a bitmap whose texture is nothing but transparent pixels. It's much like all parts of the above bitmap except for the dragon. Ignore the dragon. And what we can do is we can draw onto this bitmap directly. So we can say, instead of this .contents, we could just say gradient bitmap, but instead of 52, 52, we can say 0, 0. And we're using width. We don't want to say fill ratio and height. And now we have a bitmap which is just the bar. Now, we haven't done anything with this bitmap yet. So far, it just exists. Unless we draw it onto something, we're not going to see this happen. But what we want now is we want this dot gradient bitmap equals gradient bitmap. So now, window bar test has access to a variable which contains a bitmap which we've drawn something on. So, the next time we want to draw the bar, instead of this contents fill gradient, we can take our BLT function that we learned about at the very beginning. I'm going to erase these width and height. That's just going to be embarrassing. So we can say this.contents.blt, and we want to say this dot gradient bitmap, and we want to take the top left corner of it, and then we want to take the top right or bottom right corner of it, and then we want to set the coordinates to 52, 52, I think is where we decided that. Now it's a little silly that 52, 52 is at the end of BLT and it's at the beginning of fill rect, but that's just the way that it is. The last thing that we want to do is we want to say, instead of drawing the entire width, we want to multiply it by this dot fill ratio. So to sum up what we've done just now, we've taken a gradient, we've drawn the entire gradient, we've saved that in a bitmap that we're storing. Then, the next time that we want to draw the bitmap, instead of drawing the entire bitmap, we want to draw a portion of the bitmap that is based on the fill ratio. So if I hit refresh, instead of drawing a new gradient every frame, it'll draw a different amount of the same gradient every frame. And that's exactly what we see, except for some reason for a frame where it turns invisible. That's very interesting. Does fill ratio get larger than 1?
Let's see if we can replicate it.
Yeah. Here's going to be what I do. I'm going to say, because my theory is fill ratio is greater than equal to 1. So if I say console.log this dot fill ratio, I should expect to see the number is higher than 1. Yeah, it's 1.00000000007, which is not a value that we want. Floating point numbers are very silly. However, there's a very easy fix to this problem. This stuff fill ratio equals 1. And we can do the same thing because we don't want it getting larger than 1, so we check if it's larger or equal to, then we set it to 1. We can do the same thing where this equals to 0. So that way we are resetting the values whenever it gets a little too wacky. And now boom, problem solved.
Perfect health bar.
Perfect
or whatever
health bar.
bar you want to use this for. So now that we have kind of made this, right? What you want to be doing is, rather than like having to spawn this as a window each time, you probably want to turn it into an object that you can reuse. And that's where sprites come.
Oh man. Yeah. Yeah, this is an amazing segue, Neil.
Hell yeah.
So,
that's what I'm here for.
Window bar test. Window's fine. Let's what if we did it with sprites instead? Let's take a look at how sprite base. That's what we want. Or maybe we want to look at sprite inside the
Let's check out sprite gauge, right?
Oh yeah, sprite gauge.
Just check if sprite gauge is an MV thing, or because I know it's an MZ thing. Okay, yeah, it's an MZ thing.
It's an MZ thing.
We'll get to it. Yeah.
Let's take a look back at RPG Core, because I have a feeling it's going to give us some information that's going to be useful. I don't know for sure, because I've never looked at the code in RPG Maker before. I'm very new to this. But it looks like...
And as Isaiah is making this journey, folks in chat, now that you've seen the health bar in action, do you have any questions, right, about how you would go about setting something up? A pretty decent follow-up question would be, can I make a circular bar? And the answer is yes, absolutely.
The answer is yes. Please don't ask me to do that math right now.
I would actually encourage you all at home to write that plugin.
I thought you were going to say I would encourage you all to make Isaiah do the math.
I mean, yes, 100%.
Hold him accountable.
Yeah. God damn it. That's pretty serious. Look at a tau function, right? Or sorry, the tau the tau value, right? Because it's you can use yeah, exactly. You can do a circular bar, right? Circular hot elements, cooldown icons, right? That's a pretty popular one as well. All of those things you could do. Can I make a bar that mimics a Kingdom Hearts health bar? Jordan, you've asked the perfect question.
Jordan.
Isaiah, let's go.
So I'm going to answer that question later in life. For now, I want to move on to sprites because we did want to dedicate the first hour to bitmap and the second hour to sprites. So if we look at the sprite function, we can see if we create a new sprite, we can pass a bitmap along to it. So that's really nice. The sprite contains a bitmap. That gives us access to information that we didn't previously have about sprites. Annoyingly, sprite base, we can't pass a bitmap to. However, we can just set its bitmap when we create it. Actually, before I write code, do I want to boot up MS Paint and talk about the difference between sprite and bitmap, or? Thank you for answering that question in the chat.
Yeah. So Sila's also asking a bar that isn't a color gradient but instead image. Very easy, right?
Oh yeah.
In fact, do you want to do that? Do you want to turn the dragon into a gauge before we jump into sprites?
Actually, that's super easy. It's so easy that I can just take this code, and I can comment out the original thing, and I can say gradient bitmap equals image manager dot load system dragon, and it will simply work because we've already basically done it.
That would make for a good like loading screen, I think.
Yeah, so
it would be very silly.
We're taking the principles of we created a bitmap and then are like drawing interesting things on the bitmap, storing it in a value, and then later on we're drawing the bitmap at a specific width based on the fill ratio. All we need to do is instead of manually drawing the bitmap like by using programming, we can just load in an image, and it works fundamentally the same way. So I'm gonna real quick make a sprite. Neil, you can vamp. I should have been doing that previously.
Yeah, no, it's all good. So let's theory craft the Kingdom Hearts gauge as Isaiah sets things up. So as I suggested, the hackiest way of doing it is do two gauges, right? One that you can hide half of, which you already know how to do using BLT. The circular gauge, that's something that you'll need to figure out, but again, it's relatively simple, right? The same concepts that are applied here, you can use for a circular gauge. And the other one being the bar gauge, right? Which is where most of it goes. Now, the important thing is that these are two gauges, but they're pulling off the same value. The thing that you have to keep in mind is that the circular gauge only cares about like its ratio once HP has reached a certain point. Isaiah, you played broad mode, right? Like, when does it get to like the circular edge, HP wise?
I mean, if you're in proud mode, that's most of the game. You have a very low amount of
yeah,
HP.
Exactly. That's what I'm asking. Yeah.
I would guess that 100 HP is when it transitions from circle to line. That's my guess.
Yeah.
But it seems to be it is not percentage based. It's flat number based, which I do think actually makes the math easier for coding that, like if you want to program that as two separate health bars.
That is something that I've seen for the very long bars, is that they're not percentage based. Like, it kind of blew my mind when I learned that Dark Souls and Elden Ring, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, future folks that watched the VOD. But those are flat gauges, right? I was really surprised, when I saw that, like the amount of chip, like when you take like 1,000 off the bar, right, and then we take another 1,000, right? That's consistent. A lot of games lie about the health bar because like you can do clever things kind of with it. You can create a sense of tension. For example, health bars don't need to represent their values kind of flatly. Rather, you can have it such that the last 30%, right, of your health takes up a much bigger kind of chunk than the rest of the 70%. So when you initially take damage, it seems that you take like a lot of damage, but the player feels like they're under threat before they go down. But that's a game design thing. You all can like test it and figure that out. Going back to actually setting up this double gauge. So yeah, so essentially the circular gauge only cares if health is 100 to like from 0 to 100, and then the bar gauge is everything past that kind of amount. Okay, Asila's too tired. Good night, Asila. Yeah, no, it'll be completely fine. Thanks for tuning in as long as you did. We do appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the bar gauge, right, takes care of the HP beyond that point. The important thing, especially with regards to the Kingdom Hearts bar gauge, is that the bar gauge actually, so it's not not until like very late game is it a set amount. Rather, the gauge grows, right, over time, right, as you gain more max health. Checking with the Kingdom Hearts expert Isaiah, because it's been years since I've not played Chain of Memories, right, which is my go-to Kingdom Hearts game, right?
Yeah, so I wasn't listening, but the answer to your question is the size of the bar is directly proportional to the amount of health that you have.
Right. So in order to show the growth, right, we've already sort of shown that you can change the width of the bar, right, based on a value, and if you change the value, the width of the bar will change with regards to that. So having it be proportional to whatever the max health size is, right, that's something that you can do. So yeah, that's at least how I would approach it, right? Is figure out how to implement a circular bar first, and then draw 2 bars, hide half of the circular bar, and only activate the circular bar after, right, you've hit a certain HP threshold. Mm-hmm. And to make these things easier on you, set each of these things as variables so that you can very easily change a value and test it, right? And see sort of how that works in your game. Mm-hmm. Don't avoid magic numbers, right? Especially when it comes to UI components, you will regret it. Okay, going back to Isaiah.
Okay, so I've created a sprite and I've put it on into the game. Now it's on top of a previous window. However, if I were to change the order in which they were created, you can see that this is the last thing in the code. Create bar window is called under create bitmap window. If I were to change the order, actually I'm gonna ask this to both Neil and the chat. If I were to create the sprite before I create the window, what would be the expected behavior?
So, well, are you adding the sprite as a child to the window?
So the sprite is not a child to the window; it's a child to the scene.
Do you have like a contents or like a bitmap that it's spawning into?
So I'm just calling this.addChild this.bar sprite. So it belongs directly to the scene. It's one of the children of the scene.
I think that'll work.
Yeah, so if I hit refresh, we actually don't see a change in behavior. And the reason we don't see a change in behavior is because if I go into scene manager .scene .children, is it just children? Yeah, there's no underscore. Then we can see we've got a series of sprites, then we've got the window layer, and then we've got the sprite bar test. So whenever we call add window, it adds it to the window layer object. Whenever we call add child, it adds it directly to the scene. The window layer is always going to be below any object that you add to the scene after the window layer is created. The window layer is created at the beginning of the scene, which means that any sprite that you add onto the scene, unless you explicitly add it before the window layer is added, it's going to be on top of all windows. And that means that it's going to cover up the pretty face of the dragon.
So, for example, if you're making a HUD, right? This is how you would do it. You wouldn't make a HUD, the HUD sprites on the window. You would just want to add them to the scene itself, right? If you want the HUD to be persistent and something. You can do it as a window. For example, encounter window, right? What we do is we essentially create a new window layer and set them up in there so that the encounter window stuff is given precedence, right, over the message window, right, shop windows, like things like that.
Now, there are a couple reasons you might want to prefer windows over sprites. There are a couple reasons you might want to prefer sprites over windows. As established, we can draw bars on windows just as well as we could turn a bar into a sprite and make it do its thing. However, if you draw two windows with overlapping coordinates, only one of them will be visible. The other one will become invisible in the part where those things are overlapping. That is an intentional function of the windows. It keeps things like, for example, if I create a new game and I say, okay, so here's an example. If I were to extend the width of extend the height of scene manager scene, and it should be the command window. If I were to say .height, there is no command window. It's the skill type window. There we go. Its height is currently 180. If I were to set it to 200, then we could see that it extends beyond the bounds. And if I set it to 240, we can't see anything behind this window, even though it's technically transparent. They draw on top of each other, and that creates this overlapping feeling, creating it from becoming claustrophobic. With sprites can overlap on top of each other and create that claustrophobic feeling, or the cluttered, or however, as long as that's the behavior that you want. That's the benefit to using sprites. There's another benefit to using sprites.
You can use it to create composite images, right? So you create sprites using sort of individual pieces, and you can put it together. Those of you that let's say you want to make like a sprite that's like an avatar of a character, and then you put on like a new piece of equipment, right? And you want that reflected on the character. Well, that's super easy with sprites, right? You just swap out what their clothes are, right? For the clothing sprite, right? That you put on top of the character, right? And then the rest of the animations and things move along with them. Going back to Isaiah.
There's another thing that sprites can do that Windows can't. And let's take a look at... So I've got it so that if I press left, then it moves to the left. If I press right, it moves to the right. That's really nice. What if I do it so that if I press, let's say, up, well, it'll still move to the left, and it'll still move to the right if I press up and down. But what if I say this dot rotation minus equals 0.05? That feels like a good number. We'll see if it's actually a bad number. Plus equals 0.05. What'll happen is it rotates. We now have a rotating sprite. And this is really nice because there's something else that we can do too, where we could say, okay, actually let me refresh and let me show you. If I, am holding down, then we can see that it's rotating around the top corner. But if I were to say initialize this dot, I believe it's anchor, equals new point 0.5, 0.5. and I'm pretty sure anchor is an observable point, but it makes that translation really well. So something weird has happened. It looks like it's only half as wide, right? But the reality is now its center is now the center of the image. So when it's at position 0, 50, which is where it is, I believe, then that's where the center of the image is instead of the top left corner. Which means that if I rotate the image, now it rotates around the center. And so being able to change what the anchor of the sprite is allows us to make a lot of interesting things about how it rotates. It has consequences for what its position is, but it also allows us to do things like maybe instead of rotation, actually I'll keep this, but I'll change it to page up and page down. It allows us to do things like this dot scale dot x minus equals 0.05 scale dot y.
Nick Sav, if you're watching the VOD, this is for you.
That's exactly right. So now, if I go back in and I say, let's move this slightly because it's way out of the way. Now, if I hold page down, it gets bigger. If I hold page up, it gets smaller. If I make it too small, it becomes upside down. You can't really tell because it's the same. It's just a green. Here, let me. There's no draw line in RPG Core, is there? Oh, you know what?
Because you can just draw a bar that has like one height.
Here, I'm gonna make it the dragon. I'm making it the dragon. And let's get rid of this .bitmap.fill all. Now we might notice something very strange. First of all, there are two dragons because we were already drawing a dragon. I can rotate the dragon, look at my boy go, and if let's make you smaller, then we can see that he turns upside down. Something interesting happens when I make him bigger. Something interesting happens when I make him bigger, as long as I turn smooth on. Let me make sure smooth belongs to the sprite and not to the bitmap. It does indeed belong to the bitmap. So I have to say this .bitmap.smooth. And now something interesting happens if I make him bigger. That's the same. I don't understand how smooth works. But, hold on.
We'll get to anti-aliasing pixel perfect next time.
It should be. Hold on a second. I'm going crazy. It's not blend mode. Whatever. Someday I'll know. In my experience, when you scale something up as a sprite, it's scaled up pixel perfect as long as you set something, whereas with a bitmap it isn't. I'll look into what's going on here eventually. But in the meantime, there's one more angle that we can manipulate, so to speak. Actually, before I go on that, I'm gonna get weird with it. So what if page down makes it bigger, right? But page up only makes it thinner.
Hey, you can do a Paper Mario thing.
You could do a Paper Mario thing. You're absolutely right. As long as you don't mind that he is only getting bigger. This is I'm an artist. I feel it deep within my soul.
Now that feels consistent with Paper Mario. All right. So so we can do position changes, rotation changes, scale changes, right? Could we change the hue with the tint.
Yeah.
Of the
And that's actually, so technically with bitmaps, you can change the tint as long as you change it on load. When you load an image, you can load it based on tint. However, let me vamp as I find the function that does it. It's not blend
It's okay.
mode.
I can take over the vamping. Hey. Okay, so yeah, so we're looking into sort of different manipulations we can do with bitmaps. There's one that's a little bit more complex, but so in Card Game Combat, you'll note that we have the show card plugin. All that's doing is this, right? It is basically creating a card sprite, drawing it to the screen, and then all of the different parameters that you put in the plugin command for it are the ones that we have shown here, right? Such as doing X and Y, having it have a rotation, right? We don't allow you to change scale. That's because while we can do it, it may look a little bit bad, right? But we will want to support that kind of eventually. And this exact operation is something that we're doing not just with show card, but also with the sprite, the card sprite itself. For example, in battle. So you'll notice that like when you create a hand, right, there's like a slight rotation to it to create like a fan. That's as a result of this, right? That's sort of a math operation that sort of has to play out in order to do it that way. One thing that Isaiah has included as of 1.6.0 is the ability to change the skew, right, of the different things. So now we can take a 2D texture, right, and basically perform an operation on it that makes it a little bit 3D, which is kind of neat. Oh, we got a white dragon.
We got a white dragon. So what I meant to say, what meant to do was times this dot fill ratio, and I just copied the fill ratio code from the window. So what we should see now is apparently nothing. Did I do it wrong? Oh, I also need to set fill direction. That's my bad. Yeah.
Okay, there we go. We got a blinking dragon.
We got a blinking dragon. And it blinks perfectly in sync with the bar because they both have the same logic for how fast their variables change. So this works, I think, very similarly to if I go into a project and I say tint screen. There's set blend color and set color tone. Yeah, I believe this is more similar to color tone because set color tone has a gray value instead of an alpha. But essentially what's going on here is we have a red, a blue, a red, a green, and a blue, and then an alpha value. And all of them go from 0 to 255. And what I'm doing is I'm setting all of them to 255, which adds up to the color white, followed by an alpha value, which goes up and down. If I were to say, let's get rid of the blue value, then we would see the color change, and now it's yellow.
Okay, and that actually gives me an idea of like how to implement like foil, right?
Oh yeah.
Or like when you open up a booster pack, right? Like that kind of thing. I think that this kind of effect could look really, really good.
Absolutely.
So I'm taking a look at the time, and it's around 9:30ish your time.
Mm-hmm.
Do we want to? How long do you think you can continue?
Probably another 30 minutes, and then I'll be wiped out.
Yeah. So we do want to do the plugin draw, kind of as well. That'll take about 10-ish minutes.
Yeah.
Is there a topic that we can cover? It's roughly 20 minutes-ish long. It seems that like we won't be able to get to MZ, unfortunately. That's fine. We sort of anticipated that. Should we talk about where? So we talked about scenes, right, and where sprites are stored. Should we talk about sprite set, right, and like how that affects battle? And let's say that you want to affect like an enemy sprite in battle. How you would go about that?
So I actually there's something else that I want to go over with sprites, and it's not skew.
Okay, sure.
I do want to go over skew because it looks cool, but we're not going to go over skew because it's basically the same as scale. It just looks different. So what I want to go over is, if we go into RPG sprites and we see sprite base, let's take a look at set frame. Just kidding, it's not an RPG sprites, it's an RPG core.
Oh yeah, no, this is pretty important. Animation, yeah, obviously.
Yes. So if we look at, let's say, let's go to this guy. We've got actor 1, right? And he's chilling on the event. Actually, let's change him to this guy, since he's not actually on screen. So if I were to boot up the game, he says after shutting down the game, if I were to boot up the game and say, hey, look, it's this guy, he's just looking blank at me, and if I talk to him, just kidding, I haven't set up an event, but theoretically if I talk to him, he looks towards me, right? Now he's a part of a big image. This is an image containing all of the actors, and he's not just one frame, he's all 12 of these frames, but secretly he's all 8 of these like categories, but he has instructions on which part of him to show at a time. Now, if I wanted to animate something like this, what I could do is I could say, okay, let's grab this giant image, store that in a variable, and then we'll get a new version of the image, which is an 1/8 of the size, and it's like a 3x4 thing, and we'll BLT that into a bitmap, and then in an array of bitmaps, an array of 12 bitmaps, we'll iterate through that and draw like a section, basically splicing it into all of them. So now I have like 8 bitmap images that I'm cycling through when we animate them, right? That would be how I would do it. Because I am apparently not as smart as the RPG Maker devs, who in their wisdom created a set frame function, which allows us to have the bitmap of a sprite is the entire image, but we only display one portion of the bitmap at a time. And to sort of show you what that looks like, let's go back to our bitmap container. We've got a sprite bar test, which is actually a dragon, because we're very funny.
So let's create like a new one that is, and then just set it to the top right corner, right? Because currently things are filling up in
things are filling up in the top
right?
left. So I'll create function sprite frame test, not framed test, and then this dot. I'm just gonna copy all of this and then change the name of it. That'll save some time. Dun. And then, should we load the dragon again, or should we? Let's.
We want to do a frame-based animation, right? So I have 2 suggestions. One is we could do a character, like from the character sprites.
Yeah.
And then do a walk cycle. And then once they're done with the walk cycle, they change the direction, and then they do another walk cycle.
Okay.
Right? And then they sort of loop through. Or we can, depending on time, we can just take the icon set and loop through that.
Yeah, I was thinking about either the icon set or the damage variable.
Yeah.
Let's do damage because it's a smaller total image size, so it won't take up the whole screen if we show the whole thing. But then also the individual images I think are larger.
Yeah, the one thing to be careful about the damage numbers is the miss at the bottom. That's not gonna conform to it.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've got, and then I'm not going to worry about anchor or fill direction or anything like that. So I'm just going to create a frame test. I'm going to add it to the scene. This dot create frame test. Create frame sprite, and then create frame sprite. this dot frame sprite equals new sprite frame test. I'm getting very good at writing code, or I'm getting very good at copying and pasting code. And then x equals graphics dot box width minus 100, and then we'll set this to 100 just to make sure. We'll set this to 200 just to make sure that we have a lot of space. So if I boot this up, we should see the damage guy. You're not in the right place. Graphics.box with minus 100. Oh, it's bar sprite that I set instead of frame sprite. I'm a silly guy. There, now you're... Let's move you over a bit more. So now you're here, and that's really nice. And let's go to... not bar test, we want to look at frame test. We want to create a new variable, which is this dot frame number equals 0, and then in sprite frame test dot prototype dot update always want to do the original our parent object's update call, because otherwise things get a little wonky. And then we'll say this dot frame number plus equals 0.2. I want to change it every once in a while. And then
sorry to intervene. Do we want it such that it's it counts up fractionally?
Yeah, you're probably right.
Because I mean, it could work like fractionally could like be like an odometer like type of thing. But would we want to essentially have a timer, right? I think that.
Yeah, you're definitely right.
Yeah. So for those in chat / watching the VOD, what if we do the update every frame, right? It may be too fast, right? For folks to kind of see the animation. So what we do is we essentially wait a couple frames before. And this is frames for the game client, the window. We wait a couple before we push the animation right to its next stage, It's still a short amount of time, right? Like it could be like 5 frames, right? Or it could be 10 frames, but it's enough time that like it gets rendered to the screen, you see it, and then you see it change into the next thing. Thereby, the animation is created as the illusion, right, between the two images buffering. And the other thing is that this gives you a little bit more control, right? Such that you can slow down the animation or speed it up based on the how many frames you're going to count in between each change.
Now I don't know how wide this is, so let's
check in properties.
Yeah. Go into properties.
Or I guess you can grab the
240
bitmap.
240 over 10.
Yeah,
so it looks like they're 24 wide, and then
wide.
160 over 5, which is Neil. You do the math while I write things.
So 160 is gonna be like 32.
32. That makes sense. That looks about 32. Okay, so if I say set frame, let's just say 0, 0, frame width, frame height. Now that's not doing anything with frame number, right? But if I were to just save that, we would be able to see we're just set to 0. So we've taken the 24 by 32 rectangle that is in the top corner, and we've said, okay, this is the only part to be visible. So to use...
Now, one small operation that we may want to do is that after we've set the frame, let's scale it up a bit.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Let's set the scale in the initialize function. So this dot scale dot x equals 2. This dot scale dot y equals 2. So he's big now. He's big and pixelated. So if I were to say, let's say, this dot frame number mod 10 and then this should be math.floor this dot frame number over 10. I believe that's the right math. What we should see is whenever frame number goes up, then whatever index essentially we're looking at goes up. All right.
So it is working a little bit. We do see it, but it's not exactly what we want, right?
Yes, and that's because what I need to do is that's the number that we want, but we need to multiply that by the frame width and then by the frame height. So it's working. And boom,
that's beautiful.
It's working really nice. Now
that's really cool.
Now you will notice that the position 0, on this sprite is the same regardless of what the frame is. You will also notice that the scale is like independent of the actual like height of the bitmap. So when we set the frame width to 24, it's not grabbing the first half of the bitmap. Is there an M in there? Oh yeah, because of the miss.
It's a miss, yeah.
So essentially set frame allows you to determine what part of the bitmap is being shown without changing things like the origin point of the sprite, without changing the scale of the sprite, the like what counts as the center and things like that. So it's essentially taking this image and turning it into frame data, where like we're sort of subdividing it into a bunch of different bitmaps. But instead of storing them as separate bitmaps and then having to worry about like if I change data within one bitmap, because this is all within a bitmap, changing the data of the bitmap will change the entire stuff. So as an example, if I were to look at what's a property that a bitmap can have, let's take
Width,
its
height.
I'm thinking about like
The source image.
yeah, like okay, this is a goofy one, but let's say the font face, right? Let's say I wanted to draw a character and then have like text on top of that character for some reason. And then that text we might have to draw every frame, but if I were to take the font size, the font height, etc., I would only have to set that once as opposed to set it for each bitmap within this sprite.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. This is something that you all should also consider. So you can swap out the sprite like while this kind of frame animation is happening, right? Like the source image, and it'll still proceed along the same way. This is, for example, how the battler sprites in the side view kind of work, right? Isaiah, if you could show like a battler sprite sheet.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think SV actors in image.
Yeah, so we've got actor one, and then
yeah. So all of them basically have the same setup for the animation, right? Which is a 3-frame cycle that each sort of action does, right? So they have an idle, attack, damage, right? Using a skill, right? That kind of thing. But as Isaiah showed, right, by cycling through them, right, we can have that logic and we can just feed in a different sprite sheet, right, and it will work the same way, right? So long as we've set up the sprite sheet the exact same way, it'll cut it up and cycle through the frames as we've instructed it. So hopefully next time we get a chance to manipulate stuff in scene battle, stuff like this, for instance, right? But the logic is the same, right? Like once you set this up, you can do a frame-based animation this way.
All right,
Okay.
and I think I think that about brings our tutorial stuff to a conclusion.
Okay. All right. Well, Jordan, thank you for listening in chat and lasting this long. Let's take a photo of whatever nonsense is going on screen, right, and share it with the rest
Hold
of the
on,
community.
let me make this guy a little
yeah.
bigger first.
Yeah. It sure has been a stream, right? Yeah. Actually, Isaiah, be careful when going to Discord.
Yeah.
That's all I will say.
Here, I'll post this to you, and then you can post it wherever you like.
How are you posting it to me? I'm on Discord.
Yeah, I'm careful. It's in my other monitor.
Okay, all right. See, okay, very good. Yeah, I mean, honestly. So, like, one idea that I suggested to Isaiah is that what if we taught them how to? I don't know if everybody watching the VOD is gonna be old enough, but back when DVDs were a bigger thing, you would have like a DVD player, and then like there would be like a little bouncing DVD player logo that would just bounce across the screen, and it would frustrate the hell out of you because you would always like imagine it going to the corners, but never did. And so I kind of wanted to create a plugin using a sprite where it just bounces across the screen, and then like that could be like an animated title screen. We may yet get to do that, or maybe I assign that as homework or something. Haha.
Your homework: create the DVD bouncing plugin.
I literally got that in a college course. This was intro to like 2D game development, which was a good ass course. I made an I wrote an engine to make an RPG.
Incredible. Terrible news. The wheel spinner has music.
Oh no.
Ask me how I found out. Now all of chat knows that we have a wheel spinner.
I mean, that was the plan.
Do you have a wheel set up, or do you need me to set it up now?
So I wanted to tabulate the final the final things. Okay, Jordan, is that a joke request, or should we include that because you are a patron now? DVD logo that always is the corner. Yeah. Okay, so now we're gonna move over to the second portion of this very long plugin tutorial. So this is part one, probably, of what I think is gonna end up being kind of a 3-part tutorial, right, on bitmaps and sprites. Hopefully you tune in for the other portions. But now we're gonna move over to the drawing. So previously we had done these via sort of like we'd like cut up papers, right, and like recorded the drawing, which is nice and dramatic. But I did want folks to see on here using a perfectly unbiased system, right, how the drawing was done. Part of the reason for this is that it's easier to do weighted draws, which is the thing that we're trying this time around. Okay, so Isaiah, let me refresh Patreon and get the votes, or
right.
not the votes quite yet, but get people's picks. Jordan, if you want to sound off in chat, either if you're supporting an existing plugin request, or if you want to suggest one of your own, then we can include that for this draw. Only 3 plugin requests will be drawn, right, off the ones that we mentioned. Okay, so Isaiah, slate system, please include 2 of these. So all you have to do is write it down and then enter, and then it'll make a new one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, card art layers. Please include 3 of these.
Oh man.
Yeah. Fast play optimization plus debug, or we can call it like FPO plus debug, right?
Yeah, it looks like we're gonna
I don't want you to write it again because we have.
I'll call
we have
it fast play plus
them.
debug.
Yeah, fast play plus debug. We got 2 of them, and then HD card previews. Unless you want to change your.
Nah, I'm sticking with it.
Nah, you're sticking with it. And then Austin's one, which was text format plus plus.
Hold on, I'm
let me
changing
check.
the theme.
Yeah. Okay. Make it like more rainbow colored if you can.
Aurora. Well, I kind of like that.
Those are Eva colors? Okay, no. So Jordan is legit requesting the Kingdom Hearts HD page. I mean, we have slides as well, so we may as well put it in. Yeah, go ahead. Here's Jordan. That's gonna be an easy one. Like, okay, I mean, I'll take it. I'll do it. Right,
Look,
if it gets picked.
Yeah.
Yeah. I say it's easy, right? And then I try to do it.
Oh my god.
Like, fuck this bitch. Oh god. I should not swear, right?
No, it's too late
okay.
in the video for it to be demonetized.
Is that a thing? Like, is there like a statute of limitations? Right?
Yeah, after the first 30 seconds, you can swear and it won't get demonetized.
Okay, cool. Very, very cool. Thank you, YouTube.
Yeah.
All right, let's spin the wheel. So 3 picks, right? And if one of them gets picked that has multiple votes, then we remove all of them, right?
Give me a song to play for the spin hype. That won't get content ID.
Do you have? That's the problem, right? I think just go with the Zachtronic stuff, right?
Okay.
The way we go through. Yeah.
All right, we're spinning. All right, card art layers is the first
card art
pick.
layers. Okay, so go ahead and add that, and then oh, that's very nice. It actually removed all of them from it automatically. That's so cool. We're definitely using this in the future. Okay, card art layers. All right, plugin number 2. Let's go.
Text format plus.
Let's go.
And
all
finally,
right, last one.
HD card previews. Hell yeah!
It was so close. It was so close to going Kingdom Hearts. That is so frustrating.
Neil honestly might do it anyway, just because he wants to.
Yeah. I may as well. Okay, all right. I think that's that's our 3.
Card art
so Isaiah,
layers.
I need a write up from you on HD card previews, but that can wait till tomorrow.
Absolutely.
But definitely take a screen cap of this so that we can share it with Patreon folks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Jordan, don't worry. I'll just do it. out of curiosity, right? Just to see if I can. Yeah.
You're just like fuck it.
Yeah.
All right. So thanks for coming to the stream. Thanks for. We were very close. It would have been very funny if the thing that we put in at the last minute got picked.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay. All right.
So I guess I forget how we sign off, and it's 10 p.m. So
yeah. I think we're pretty tired. So thank you all, everyone, for coming. Everybody that watched the VOD. Hopefully it's been informative. We'll continue with this next month, and teach more about bitmaps and sprites, because there's a lot to kind of cover.
Oh, yeah.
For Patreon folks, if you're tuning in, make sure to vote in this next coming week on these 3 plugins that we have kind of created. And also watch this space because very soon you guys are going to get 2 new plugins that have been hotly anticipated. Right? So definitely keep an eye out for them. Thank you so much for your support. We'll be back next month. Thank you, Isaiah, for your time. And yeah, let's call it a stream.
All right. See ya.
Bye.
All right, we are no longer live.